Welcome to our Gemara Shir. Here we are again with Maseches Shabbos, Daf Kuf Nun Vav Amud Aleph. Two interesting topics today. One is very halachic, and the other one is very much of an agadita. The first topic we're going to do today is to discuss the issue of lash, of kneading on Shabbos, lisha on Shabbos. Not a simple malacha, but we'll try to simplify it, get it clearer, and get our grips on this malacha of kneading, of creating dough or other types of mass on Shabbos. And the other topic will be astrology, very interesting topic. Does Judaism believe in astrology or not? Ooh, big one. So Kufnan Vav Amud Aleph, this year, like all my other shiurim, are dedicated. This year is dedicated for my father, memory of my father, Reb Nachum ben Akiva, and for the very quick release of all the hostages, all the missing people should come back home very, very, very soon. V'yas Mashiach. So we are now Kufun Vav Amud Aleph. We're actually in the middle of the sugya of Lash on Shabbos. Line starts v'achar kach 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, kind of 8 lines from the top of the page. Levi brei derav huna. So we got to give some summary over here. The topic of Lash is as follows. The Malach of Lisha on Shabbos, kneading dough on Shabbos, is one of the 39 Malachas. The prohibition is the fact that you take something that's powdery, small pieces, and together with the liquid makes them into one united, one big mass, not with an E, mass as dough. Yeah, is one viscous, kind of plasticine kind of thing, like dough. So, well, generally speaking, that's an Isser Doraisa, but there are many exceptions and many details over here. The first thing we have to know is there's the machloikes between Rebbe and Rabbi Yosef Bar Yehuda. Rebbe says that once the flour and the water hit each other and touch each other, that's already called Meleches Lisha and Yuchayev. There is some kind of a chemical reaction even before it became one homogeneous dough, and that's already Chayev. That's why Rebbe usually would be more machmir in the entire melacha. Rabbi Yosef Bar Yehuda says no. You only chayev once you megabel. We see the word gibul megabel all the time. Gimel beis lamed, which means to really mix. Actually mix and knead. Technically, only then you're chayev. Before that, you're not chayev. Now, the Gemara told us that, and by the way, the topic of the Mishnah that brought us to talk about lash is the topic of feeding animals on Shabbos. And there's this kind of animal fodder, like very low class kind of flour called mulsan. Mulsan does not mix very nicely. In other words, even if you mix it and you knead it, it's never going to be really viscous, really smooth and nice. It's always going to be, like you're mixing ashes with water. And because it's called lav bar gibul, it's a kind of matter that never really gets mixed up nicely together. It's called not bar gibul, and it's only, according to the Rambam at least, and some other Rishonim, it's only also the Rabbanon. Therefore, says Rabbi Yosef Bar Yehuda that if you do it with a change, with a shinui, in a way that is not the normal way, then it's allowed. Rabbanon are the ones who said it's also. Rabbanon are the laws who said that if you do the lisha in a different way, b'shinui, like we know the concept of shinui all over Shabbos, then it's allowed. What's a shinui? Not a very big shinui. You basically add the water or whichever liquid, but dribs and drabs, yad al yad, as the Gemara says. You add a bit and you mix. You add and you mix because it's a shinui that's allowed because it's not bar gibul. Had we been talking about real kemach, real flour, real water, that mamish becomes nice dough, that wouldn't help. That's an issa deraisa, and then you just cannot do that whatsoever. Rebbe, remember, he's always stricter. He doesn't allow that. Now, there is another point which I'm not repeating because it's not so relevant for us. I may go back afterwards, but right now, let's continue to the next case. Now it's time to start the shir. Thank you. with the following story. Levi Breder Ravuna Barchia. Levi, the son of Ravuna Barchia, Ashkechei, he found Legabla de Beinashe. He found the animal keeper, the person in charge of the animals of his father. What's Gabla? He's in charge of feeding the animals. What do you do when you feed animals? You mix. You mix the animal fodder with water or with whatever you have, the kagabil, and so he did. Kagabil v'safil l'toyrei. Gabil, he was mixing it and then feeding the ox. He's mamish over, seemingly, and Yisr Daraisa. Botashbei, he kicked him. Shabbos, what's going on over here? I'm sure the kick wasn't, lethal, but he kind of, made a macha. Botashbei, because although he did it b'shinui, that servant wasn't a mechalel Shabbos. And soon we're going to know why he did what he did. But Lamaisa, what Levi thought was, here's an Isser. The Mishnah says, Mefurash, you're not allowed to be Megabel, the Mursan and the water or the vinegar or whatever on Shabbos. So how can you do that? You deserve a kick in the pants. Asavua, his father came, Rav Huna Baruchia came into the scene. Ashkeche, he found him doing that. Omarle, so he told his son, Hachi Omar Avua Diimach Mishmei Derav. This is what your mother's father said. This is what Zaidi said. Umanu Rabbi Yirmiyah bar Abba. Who's the name of the Rav that he quoted? Rabbi Yirmiyah bar Abba. Goivlin veloi maspin, which means one is allowed to mix on Shabbos the animal food as long as loy maspin, as long as you don't feed the animal on Shabbos in a way that is, too strong. We discussed that before. But if the animal cannot eat by itself, such as a young baby cow, a calf that can't eat on his own, malkitinle, we feed him. But let's now focus on the mixing. Are you serious? Can you actually, is it true? You can actually mix the dough. Now, it's not dough. Can you mix that animal fodder powder with the water? Is that done on Shabbos? Zok the Gemara, hold it. V'hanimili, that is only true. Who? The Meshani. Only if you do it with a change in a different way. Heichi Meshani. In other words, remember, this is actually not very different to what we said before. We're talking here about something that is loy bar gibul, the animal food, as opposed to the nice challah dough, the yummy one for tomorrow. The actual animal food, the mulsan, doesn't mix so nicely, so it's all the rabbanon. If it's the rabbanon and you did it for the animal, you do it b'shinui, that's okay. And it's exactly what that servant, that animal keeper was doing. But what kind of shinui is required? Shtiva Erev. This is a new type of shinui which we haven't seen before. Shtiva Erev means instead of mixing normally, which we would call in English stirring, instead of stirring with a spoon, well, you just take the spoon and you do it in a crisscross way. You do it like one way this way, then the other way. In other words, horizontally and vertically. Horizontal, vertically, like a cross, yeah? According to Chazon Ish, you have to take out the knife or the spoon every time you do it. According to others, you don't. In any event, that's a shinui that has to be done in order when you mix the animal food, which is any other rabbanon. Frag the Gemara, a technical question. V'lo me'arev shapir. Technically, it doesn't mix well. The animal needs to eat, and the mixture of boom, 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 of criss-cross, down and sidewise, that doesn't mix well. Says the Rambam, if it doesn't work right, it doesn't give a good result when you do the horizontal, those line by line, crisscross, then you just take it and shake the kli as much as you want. That's what you do. Ever prepared a cappuccino? Yeah, basically you you shake the kli until you get the best result possible. You can do both. You can do shtiva erev, and if it doesn't work enough, then you do the newer kli. You shake the kli. Question which the Rishonim ask, and that question everyone should ask. Why do we have to come out to this new, seemingly weird kind of shinui of shtiva erev? Why can't we use the same shinui as before of me'at me'at. And then the animal would have very nice food. What's me'at me'at? Dribs and drabs. Take a bit and mix. Add more water and mix. More water and mix. So the result comes out great. It's less of a shinui. So why don't we say the same thing over here? Answers the Ramban a few answers, and I'll give one answer. The whole sugi of Lash has many shitas all over. It is nutty, so I'm just following every step of the way one shita. Ramban says one answer beforehand we dealt with human being food. Now we're dealing with animal food. Oh, which means with all due respect to animal rights and Tzar Balachaim, an animal is not a human being. When it comes to human being, then we allow a shinui that's not a very big shinui. Aliyad is doing the same, just in installments. But for animal food, well, the animals don't have to be so spoiled, don't have to be so pampered. And for the animal food, yeah, all you can do is a bigger shinui. There we require a bigger shinui of shtiva erev, and the smaller shinui is not enough. We're allowed to be more machmir. The other answer of the Ramban is that in that food, they don't really need that. In other words, it's okay for the animals to have shtiv erev and new. For that food, it's good enough. Shaken for human food, you need aliyad aliyad. It requires better quality food, and therefore the shinui of aliyad aliyad, which is a smaller shinui, is by human being food. The shtiv erev is by animal food. Now, don't get me wrong. Kol shekain that for human being food, shtiv erev is away. That's one eitzah. If you want to make, I'm not a posek halacha, and I always warn people 5,000 times that this is not halacha shir. But there are certain cases, loch lamaisa, when you make porridge and Shabbos or things like that, that you use a crisscross method. Because if it's good for animal food, which means you need a bigger shinu, kol sheken is good for human food, but not the other way around. So basically, but please bear in mind that all that is only according to Rabbi Yosef Bar Yehuda. Yeah, this is many variables, this story. Only Rabbi Yosef Bar Yehuda is the one who said that it's okay to take a Dorabanan Dika Elisha and do that shinui of either al yad, dribs and drabs, or when it comes to animal food, you require the bigger shinui of shtiv erev, crisscross. Now, let's continue and on the same wavelength. First wide line. Kosev upin kosev is the iri. The iri, and now we're going to see a few, I think about 4 or 5 cases where Amiroim wrote on their ledger Divrei Torah. Back then, although the Amiroim it was already past the Mishnah time, they were still a bit wary of writing Divrei Torah, and they would not publicize written Torah. They would keep their own ledgers, their own notebooks with Chidushei Torah they heard from the Rabbanim. It says it's written in Zeiri's ledger, in Zeiri's notebook. Zeiri is Anamoira, and Zeiri says there, Amris Kadam Rebbe. I asked my Rebbe, Umanu Rabbi Chia, my Rebbe is Rabbi Chia, which means Zeiri was an early Amoira. Rabbi Chia is already bordering on Tanoim. So Zeiri is an early Amoira. He's asking his Rebbe, Ma'al Megabel, are you allowed to be Megabel on Shabbos? Omar Osur. And the response was Osur. The Rishonim are asking, what? What's he on about? If he's talking about Gibul, regular Gibul, of course it's Osur. It's Issa Doraisa. Well, this is an Amoira asking, not not a newbie. So there are 2 answers. Answer number 1 is that are you allowed to be Megabel are you allowed to be Megabel with Shinui? All these Shinuim that we mentioned, are they for real? Is that practically allowed? And the answer is no. Why? I told you why. Because those Shinuim are only okay according to who? According to Rabbi Yosef Bar Yehuda. But according to Rebbe, that is not allowed. And Rabbi Chia apparently followed Rebbe. Rabbi Chia and Rebbe were actually very close. There are many occasions they worked together. In Sanhedrin at the beginning, in Rosh Hashanah, Daf Chafei, and many other places. Now, problem is, the Rishonim, such as the Rosh, the Rif, who paskin like Rabbi Yosef Bar Yehuda, and they bring down this Gemara. So you can't say this is Rebbe. It's contradictory. Do you follow Rebbe or Rabbi Yosef Bar Yehuda? Therefore, the other answer is, Ma'al Legabel. Are you allowed to be Megabel with a shinu of Aliyad Aliyad? Are you allowed to be Megabel for an animal with the type of shinui of dribs and drabs, of slowly, slowly, step by step? The answer is no. Now we know why. That shinui, which is a very small shinui, is only okay for human food. For animal food, you need a bigger shinui, such as a criss-cross, crisscross. Question number two that you asked Rabbi Chia, ma'u lefarek. What's the halacha regarding lefarek? There are three different explanations to lefarek. I would actually go now with the Rambam. I told you, I just maneuver my way through the Rishonim here. Ma'u lefarek. What's lefarek? Lefarek, according to Rashi, means to give animal food from one animal's leftover to the other animal. According to Rambam, lefarek means, am I allowed to spoil my animals, which is a topic all along in this sugya? Am I allowed to take, after I mixed all the food of the animals in one big bowl, in one big container, in a way that's allowed? Let's say I did a crisscross, yesh tiv erev, and it is double shenu bar gibul, all good, and a follow b'shim bar biuda, all nice. Now, ma'u lefarek. Am I allowed to take it and divide and give each animal in a different kli? Let's say Bessie, Lucy, Jimmy, Johnny, Georgie, each cow has its own trough, its own place. They're individualistic animals. Each one eats by itself. Shall I divide lefarek, like basically separate? Shall I give each one a separate dish? Or maybe it's considered as extra tircha, extra hard work on Shabbos. That's not allowed. Omar, muto, that's allowed. That's not called a tircha. You're allowed to give each animal its own. Omar Menashe. Now Rav Menashe is commenting on that, and he says, Chad kamichad, trei kametrei shapir. If you want to give each one, in other words, the amount of one per one is okay, or two for two. Let's say two animals eat from the same trough. You give them two, that's okay. But los kametrei also, to give too much food for two animals, you have two animals, you give them the amount that's good for three, that's extra tircha. You only have two animals. You want to be nice and generous, and you're preparing too much food, that's not allowed. It's also because you're making too much on Shabbos. That is tircha. However, Rav Yosef argues, and he says, no, kav afilu kabayin, ula omer kuv afilu kurayin. Rav Yosef says you're allowed to prepare one kav, that's a big amount, or even two kabayim, as much as you want. And Ula says kuv afilu kuraim, that's a humongous amount. You're allowed to prepare even kuraim, even a lot of them. The Rambam does maintain, though, that kuraim does mean you have animals, you have enough animals that will eat kuraim. You can't prepare extra. The chiddush is that you're allowed to prepare the whole big amount in one place, in one big bowl, in one big box. You're allowed to prepare the whole thing, even kuraim, and that's a lot. You're allowed to do a lot in one go. It's not considered as, over the chol or too much tircha. No. If my animals may eat kuraim, I can prepare a lot of food in one place, and then I'm allowed to divide to each animal separately. Comes the by the way, according to Rashi, let's stick to Rashi also. According to Rashi, the issue is not dividing between two animals, is not separating and giving each animal its own. According to Rashi, the question is amounts. And according to the first opinions, you're not allowed to give to prepare extra amount. According to Rashi, it sounds like that the one who said ula kur kurai means you are allowed to prepare extra. You can prepare a lot of extra animal food on Shabbos, even if you don't have that many animals. I guess it's not hachana for tomorrow. Maybe that's not allowed, but you're still allowed to have berachves, have more than the animals need, and it's not a problem. Ksiva Pinkas de Levi. It's written on the ledger, on the notebook of Levi. Another notebook. Amris Kadam Rebbe. I said to my Rebbe, Umanu Rabbeinu HaKadosh. Now remember, Rebbe is the one who all along argued with Rabbi Yosef bar Yehuda. Kuf Nun Vav Amud Aleph. We are in the sixth wide line. Rabbeinu HaKadosh, that's Rebbe, and I told him, Al dehavu gablin shtista beBavel. You know that in Bavel it became the accepted norm to be megabel, to mix the shtita, animal food, that is lav bar gibul, and you do it with a shinui of shti v'erev, and that's allowed. That's allowed according to Rabbi Yosef bar Yehuda. According to Rabbi, no way, Jose. No, you can't do that according to Rabbi, because he says right at the very second that the water touched the solids, that's already a problem. There's no shinui according to him, even in the Rabbanon. V'avitzavach Rabbi, Yeah, Rebbe would scream. Rebbe protested. Umayna Rabbeinu Kodesh. Again, Rebbe, yeah, aka Rabbeinu Kodesh, he protested. Al dehavu gablin shtita. He was angry that people do that. V'leis tishmi alei. And nobody listened to him. Nobody cared about what Rebbe said. Well, Rebbe lived in Eretz Yisrael, they lived in Bavel. But the reason why they did not listen to him, v'leis chela b'yodel l'meisal. And he had no power in his hands to actually forbid that action. He couldn't actually put a stop to it. He couldn't, put them in their place and put up a shkavil. Also, no. Why? Oh, because Rabbi Yossi Bar Yehuda said otherwise. And they could tell him, listen, Rabbi, all very nice, but we follow Rabbi Yossi Bar Yehuda. Your Tana is also a Tana. And Rabbi Yossi Bar Yehuda, in our Mishnah, by the way, if you look at the very, very Pashup Pshat of our Mishnah, it sounds more like Rabbi Yossi Bar Yehuda. Remember, right? Our Mishnah said that you noistin ve'en megablin. Pashup Pshat sounds more like Rabbi Yossi Bar Yehuda. And therefore, really, halacha l'maisa is still mechlokes, still today, but many people hold more like Rabbi Yossi Bar Yehuda, lekula, and therefore that's the mechaber. Mechaber says like Rabbi Yossi Bar Yehuda, and then he says v'yesh machmirin. The mechaber, as far as I know, stam v'yesh shomrim halacha kistam, right? I think so. So therefore, it's more mashma like Rabbi Yossi Bar Yehuda, and that was halacha. Rashi does mention here, and that was one point which I did mention before, and that is Rashi does mention the fact that there is one kula according to Rebbe, and that is blila raka. Blila raka, if the whole blila, the whole mixture is really much more runny, it's a runny, diluted kind of mixture, not very, very runny. It's not like coffee. Coffee and tea is b'chlal not called lash. It's not blila. Blila raka is like a porridge. Like a baby formula from the thicker type. That's a very good example, right? Like baby formula, some of them, when the baby's young, right, you give him the formula, the materna, it's called in Israel. Yeah, that's very runny. Sometimes when it gets half-year-old, you add some, powder that's a bit thicker. That's blila raka. That's blila raka. Yeah, it's drinkable, but it's a bit thicker. So blila raka, according to Rebbe, because it's only a weaker derabanan, because it's more different to regular lash, that is allowed even with a little bit of shinoi of changing the order. Instead of putting the water then the solid, you put the solid then the water. Whichever way you do the other way around. Adkan, I hope the topic of lash is a bit clearer today than it was yesterday. Now we are up to the story of the astrology and Judaism. Yeah, it says on the ledger of Rabbi Shimon Levi, the common denominator is the different notes, the notebooks that were held by the early Amoraim. Rabbi Shimon Levi, there's a question if it's called an Amoira or Tana. It was in between Amoraim and Tanoim. What's written in his Pinkas? It says, Hi man, the Bechad B'Shaba. A person born on Sunday, Yehi Gvar V'lo Echad Abei. A person born on Sunday would be a man that doesn't have any other way about him. Meaning, he's very one-directional, very extreme, one-dimensional. Frag the Gemara, what do you mean he only has one quality and not the other? My V'lo Echad Abei. What exactly do you mean? Ilem V'lo Echad Letivu. Are you telling me, in a judgmental way, are you saying he's only going to be bad and not good? He'll always, like his Yetzirah is very strong, he's extremely bad? That can't be true. Va'omar Rav Ashi, ano b'chad b'shaba avoi, I was born on a Sunday. And Rav Ashi was not a bad person, chas v'shalom. He was the editor of the Gemara, he was a Heilig Amoira. Ela lav chada lebishu. Maybe you mean to say that he will never be one with a bad, meaning is all good. Maybe he's just amazing and good with the Yetzer Tov his entire life. He'll always be higher neshama, as they say. Maybe that's what it means. That's also wrong. Why? V'amar Rav Ashi. Rav Ashi himself says, "Ano v'dimi bar kakuzta, me, myself, and dimi bar kakuzta." He knows dimi bar kakuzta. You're gonna know soon. Havi and b'chad b'shaba. We're both born on Sunday. We're both Sunday babies. Ano melech, I, Baruch Hashem, became a king, meaning I became an Amoira. Who are the kings? Talmid Chachomim. Vehu haveresh ganvi. He became the head of the mafia. Oh, so we both became leaders. I became a leader. I became the editor of the Gemara, and he's the one who became the head mafioso. He became the godfather of the mafia of the Ganovim. Ela, so what does it mean? So what's the common denominator? Oh, equally letivu, equally lebishu. Oh, it's either all good or all bad. In other words, people born on a Sunday would be people that tend to be extreme. Yeah, they'll be clearly one way, no two ways about them. They'll be either this way or that way. Now, I will read the round brackets, which I usually don't. My time, why is that? The evil bay over choshech. What was created on the first day of creation and the start of the creation? Light and darkness. That's very, as they say, a difference of day and night. It's either very much into the light or the dark side. The Maharshal points out something else, that it's not just about good and bad. Rav Ashi was a leader of the Talmid Chachamim, Melech, and Bar Kakusta was a regular thief. He was the head mafioso, the one sitting in Manhattan with a nice tie and a suit, yeah? That kind of guy. Which means Sunday is a leading day, the day of starting, of, all fresh starts and leadership, the head of the game, the top. And therefore, they became top people, either top to the good or to the bad. What happens to Haiman de Betrei B'Shabbat? A person who's born on Monday, what would be his fate? Yeah, Yegva Ragzan will be a person who'd be always upset with other people. Rashi says he'll always be separate from the others. He'll be like sectarian, separatist, always liking to be on his own and always upset with everyone around him. Not only when he's a teenager, his entire life. My time, why is that? Because the water was separate. By the way, that's a very deep idea over here, like everything in the Gemara. The Gemara in Pesachim about Gehenim, and then I saw the Rishonim, I gave a shir about Gehenim here in Torah Anytime. Basically, Monday is all about separation. Monday means Gehenim and Gan Eden were created on Monday, according to Gemara in Pesachim. The water is spiritual, physical. The Malachim were created on Monday. Malachim is also separation. There was just Hashem, now there are angels. It's confusing. Maybe Chas v'Sholem, one would say there are two different powers, right? So Monday is about dualism. There's me and there's you. That's a Gehenim's room, because Gehenim is separation from Hashem. So that's the idea. So the guy born on Monday, would always be a person there's me and there's you. There's always this confrontation. Number 3, Haiman de Betlosa b'Shabbat. A person born on the third day, meaning on Tuesday, Yigva Otir v'Zanoi. He'll be rich and he'll be very promiscuous. He'll be into women, into niyuf. Yeah, he'll sin with women and he'll be rich. It goes together. Yeah, the Nisayan of rich says the Al Shech HaKodesh. Somebody becomes very rich, can easily become hoylel. He has money, can have more women. He'll be that way. But my time, why would he be like that? Mishum de ivro be'asovim, because the grass and all the vegetables and fruit and trees were created then. So, well, first of all, when all the vegetation started growing, that's something that grows exponentially. So this guy's into growth. What's growth? Expansion is more and more money, more business, more cars, and more women. His manly power is all over the place, and his money as well. So basically, that's one. Secondly, Rashi says the Asavim were created like a jungle. Yeah, before human beings came and made them into, separate gardens, it's all one big mishmash, like a jungle, and that's this guy's life. It's one big jungle, more money, more women, more parties, more shtuyot, kayadua. Haiman de Balbo b'Shabbat, the person which was born on a Wednesday, Yegvar chokim v'nohir, he'll be smart, intelligent, and nohir. He'll be lit with the light of Torah. He'll be radiant. And the Aruch says he'll remember the Torah well. My taima, mishum de itlu b'me'oiros, yeah? It says, ner mitzvah v'Torah or. In other words, the Torah is light, right? And since the luminaries, the sun and the moon were created on Wednesday, this person would light the world with his Torah. But Haiman de b'chamisha b'Shabbat, a person born on a Thursday, yigva gomel chasadim, he'll be a person doing chesed, doing favors to everyone around him. My time, why? Mishum the evil bay dogim v'oifos. The dogim v'oifos, the fish and the birds were created on Thursday, and they are fed by Kodesh Baruch Hu alone. They don't have to work hard, right? Not like the lions or the cheetahs. They get the food from Hashem. Unlike us, we have to make parnoso. Even the big mammals sometimes find it hard with parnosa, like lions. It's not always so poshut by them. But the dog and vipers, they have the fish under the sea. They always manage. The birds always find something to eat, right? It's very easy because Hashem does chesed to them. If Hashem does chesed to them, so too the day of Chamishi is day of chesed. The person born that day will be on the chesed way. Oh, a person born on Friday, Erev Shabbos, Yehi Gvar Chazran. It'll be a person who's always searching for more and more what? Mitzvahs. Yeah? In other words, he'll be a person always looking and running to do more and more mitzvahs. Why? Because that's Friday. Friday is all about preparing for Shabbos, and this guy would always be in a Friday mode, right? You're always rushing on Friday to clean and to buy and to make more and more things for Shabbos. He'll have his entire life will be Friday looking for mitzvahs. And I saw another pshat, I think in the Maharsha, he says also Friday was the day that Adam Arishon, before the Chet, was commanded on the Sheva Mitzvahs B'nai Noach. 6 out of the 7 Mitzvahs B'nai Noach were given on Friday, when Adam and Chava were created. That's it. So today of mitzvahs. It's the first time mitzvahs were given was Friday. Hayamanda b'Shabsa, somebody born on Shabbos. What's his story? Yehi b'Shabsa Yomus. B'Shabsa Yehi b'Shabsa Yomus. Interesting. He was born on Shabbos. He will die on Shabbos. You know why? Adachilu Allah Yom Rabbe Shabsa. Because Chilul Shabbos had to be done for him when he was born. So also the Shabbos will kind of take revenge, so to speak, and he's going to die on Shabbos. Now you're going to ask me a question. Now, not everyone born on Shabbos really dies on Shabbos, right? Well, the Achronim asked the question, and the answer comes now. Amarove ba'arav Shila v'kadisha rabba yitkeri. Wow. A person born on Shabbos, Shabbos Kodesh, and this person will be Parush v'Kodesh. It says v'kadsheu. Everything created on Shabbos, everything to do with Shabbos is holy. That person too is holy. That's why he'll die. That's why he'll die on Shabbos. Not because he sinned, but because that although there was Chilul Shabbos for him, but at the end of the day, if he uses the power of Shabbos and he becomes a Kodesh, like he can become Kodesh, a holy person, then he'll have that great midah of tzaddikim, mispar yamecho amaleh, that he may be born and die on the same day of the week. We always think it's the same date. Apparently, it's also the same day of the week, or another pshat, I don't know. But the same day of the week, to be born on Shabbos and die on Shabbos is a very big thing. And we assume a person born on Shabbos has that ma'ila because he's probably going to come out to be a holy person. Ad kan, what we said b'shem Levi. This is what's written on the Pinkas of who? Of Levi. Rabbi Yeshua ben Levi. Sorry, Rabbi Yeshua ben Levi. Now, Rabbi Chanina told the Talmidim, the disciples of him, of Rabbi Yeshua ben Levi, he's told them, Puku, go out. Amrulei lebar Livoi, tell your Rebbe Bar Livoi, lo mazal yom goyrem, el mazal sho goyrem. I disagree with his entire theory, and the day does not affect the person's mazal, but rather the shah, the time of day, does affect him. So we already spoke about it in Daf Kuf Chavtes, that when it comes to when it comes to the day, every hour of the day, there's another star, another mazal. It's not only stars. The sun, the moon, and 5 other stars, which we're going to meet now. It's like a cycle, and they go over Earth. Yeah, in other words, they go around and around the Earth. Whatever, at least that's the way, spiritually speaking, that's how we look at it. And every hour of the day, there's another mazal that's in charge. Another mazal from Shamayim is in charge of that hour and has some kind of hashpah, influence over the world. And that's what really makes a difference, according to Rabbi Chanina. Now, what are the 7 ones? We're going to see them one by one. Hayman de Bechana, a person born at the time, the hour in which the sun is the dominant power in the world. What's going to be with him? Yegvar Zivtan. He will be a person full of light, just like the sun. Yeah, the Shemesh Amei, he'll be like sun, very light, very straightforward in a good way, very open. Ye'achil midilei v'shasi midilei. He will always eat his own thing and drink from his own thing, which means he will never try to take someone else's food or money or fame. He's happy with what he has, just like the sun is shining. Rashi points out the sun never appears at night. The moon appears during the day sometimes, but the body of the sun is never there by night. So the sun is always happy to give the moon its time, its place. The moon is always jealous of the sun, right? That's always the relationship there. But the sun is always happy with what he has. The sun is also the source of light. He is the source. He has enough of his own. Happy-go-lucky. He has his own thing and is good. V'razoi galian. If he wants to keep a secret, it won't work. Yeah, he's open. Like the sun can be seen by everybody. He's a very open guy, and even if he wants to keep a secret, he won't manage. Rashi says, "Elo reshus lechasasoidoi." Yeah, in other words, he has no permission to cover, to basically keep things secretive. Just like the sun is always open for everybody. In goniv loy matzlach. If he wants to take a career of a thief, if he wants to steal, he won't be successful. Can't steal from others. He always has his own. Yeah? Yeah? Okay, that's number one. Second, Noiga. A person born under the star of Venus. Noga is Venus. Yegvar otir vezanoi. Oh, he'll be the rich and promiscuous guy. That guy that's too much into, sexual desires, that's a guy born under Venus. Yehei, that's where he's going to be, potentially at least. My timer, why is that? In other words, Venus has to do with fire. The fire was created, at the time of when Venus was in charge, and therefore Noiga, and the fire is fire. As it says at the end, Maharsham reminds us, remember the story at the end of Kiddushin, Nura Beplania, right? The Moira, I think of Amram, is going up the ladder to sin with the girls, and he screamed, "There's fire, fire!" The fire of his Yetzer Hara bothered him, and he said, the fire of znus, of women. So therefore, the one in also by the Goyish culture, you know that Venus is the fire, desire. It's a whole culture by going. They also know that Venus is always the thing to do with the sexual business. Haiman de Koichav. A person born in Koichav, the Koichav is the star that's right next to the sun. That's Mercury, if I'm not mistaken. Haiman de Koichav, I have a list over here. Mercury. Mercury is the one that's next to the sun, but it's very interesting, the order. You know why? We spoke about the sun. You know who are the two stars? Which are the two stars between the earth and the sun? Venus and Mercury. So now we are in the stars between the earth and the sun. I figured it out. It was very nice to see how the Gemara makes sense here. So we go with the order between the earth and the sun. The only two stars. Venus and Mercury. Now we go from Venus to Mercury. What's with Mercury? Then the story there, he'll be the smart guy. He'll be full of light and intelligent. Why? He's like the secretary, he's a soifer, he's a scribe of the Chama. Because Mercury is way closer to the sun than other stars, therefore he looks as if he's the one guarding the sun and always controlling, taking notes of what's happening with the sun. And therefore, what's the story there? Therefore, he's intelligent. He's the one who has to keep an eye about what's going on. He's observing what's happening with the sun. Therefore, somebody born under his star, his domain, will also be intelligent. Now we're going to Earth. Up until now, we spoke about what's happening between Earth and the sun. Now we're going to Earth with a Levana. What's Levana? It's the moon that orbits around the sun, around the Earth. He'll be a big sufferer, be a misken. He'll always suffer terrible things because the moon also always suffers. The moon always goes down and up, moody. Banoi v'sosil sosuru banoi. He's going to build and demolish and build. He'll never be able to build something and finish something from beginning to end. He'll always stop and start and stop and start, like the moon. The moon goes up and down, waning and waxing, it's called in English. Waning is going down and waxing is going up all the time. That's crazy. So for the moon, it's okay. But a person born under that mazal, that style, he'll always be, in and out, never managing to finish a project properly. Ochil de lo delay. He will always eat things that are not his. V'shati de lo delay. He'll drink things that aren't his. Why? Because just like the moon always is jealous of the sun and tries and manages to appear in the sky when it's still daytime, so too Mr. Moon is always, looking, some are getting from other people like a parasite, from tzedakah, from theft, Verazoi Kasyan, and he manages to keep a secret, just like the moon is more secretive by night, or sometimes completely disappears, so too he'll also be he'll be able to be very discreet and shushu behind the scenes. Im Gonav Matzlach, good career, thief. That's a career choice for him, yeah? If he wants to be a thief, he'll be successful, just like the moon always steals from the sun. This week's parsha, Lehavdil, Pnei Moshe Kechama, Pnei Yeshua Kalavano, right, in Rashi. In other words, the Chama is the Ashpo, the influence, and the Yareach, the moon always gets from the sun, yeah? So to the moon here is always getting from other people. Haimanda b'Shabsoi. That's very interesting. You know what's going on now? Shabsoi, Saturn, is, besides Neptune and Uranus, which we ignore over here, they're not mazalos, they're stam stars. Haimanda b'Shabsoi. Shabsoi is Saturn. If you look at the order of the star here, I have a diagram here, I'm sorry I didn't send it to you. You see Saturn is the one furthest from the Shabtai. That's the one with those rings around him. He's the one furthest away from the sun. And now we're starting the journey, Saturn, Jupiter, and Mars. From Earth, furthest from the Earth, going closer and closer to Earth. Very good, Baruch Hashem. What's going to be with the one who's born on Shabsi, which is Saturn? Yegval machshavte batelin. Whatever he thinks will be annulled. Any ideas he has are not going to work. Damri, some say, a more forgiving version, anything that people will think about him, maybe bad, that will be cancelled. Why? What's Shabbos? Shvita. Shabbos means not working. Even the thoughts of Shabbos, if you think of business on Shabbos, it's not going to work. Daf Kuf Nun Amud Beis, one who wanted to build defense on Shabbos, or even after Shabbos, according to the explanation there, it wasn't going to work. Shabbos, Shvita. It's not a time for action. So either he will never be able to be active, his ideas will never work, maybe can work for other people as an employee, but he wants to be initiative. Shabbos is not about initiating new things. Or other people, what they think about him is not going to work. Now, Haiman de B'Tzedek, a person born under Jupiter, Tzedek, Yigvar Tzadkan. He'll be a person, Tzadkan. He'll be a person who'll do a lot of mitzvahs, Tzadik. Amav Nachman B'Yitzchak v'Tzadkan b'mitzvahs. Which mitzvahs? Rashi says tzedakah. In other words, the tzedakah is considered, whenever we say mitzvah in general, I saw in the Meforshim here, that means tzedakah. Unless known otherwise, when you stop say the mitzvah, it means mitzvah tzedakah. Because it's a very, very, very important mitzvah. Why? Because tzedek is tzedakah. Tzedek is tzedakah, same name. Tzedek is justice or tzedakah, justice. The one born under Madim. Madim is Mars. Last but not least, the one closer to Earth from the other side of the moon. That's Mars over here. You can see it in the picture. What about him? The one who was born in Mars. Yigvar Ashid Domo. He'll be a person that would always like to spill blood. Ma'adim, Adom, red. So you'd always want to go for the blood. Now we have a very, 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 very big yesod, if not the biggest yesod in Jewish psychology. That's a very, very famous line, what I'm about to read to you now. Amar Avashi, I umna, I ganva, I tabcha, I molo. Yes, he'd want to be a blood spiller, but what kind of blood spiller? Either it'll be an umna, a doctor, or a nurse, that takes out blood. The nurses, I guess, love seeing blood. Iganva, he'll be a thief that kills, not just a thief. He'll be mamish, a criminal that kills. Itabcha, a shoichet. Imala, which is a mitzvah, which means he can be a doctor, that's not a mitzvah, not an avera. He could be a murderer, which is an avera, or it could be a moil shechet, which is a mitzvah. And that is what Maharsha says, it's a famous yesod in psychology, meaning, yes, you are born with certain character traits, but it's your choice what to do those character traits. And that's really the answer for this whole business, yeah? When a person, let's say, is atir v'zanoi, You tell me a Jew is born and he's destined to be a mizane? He'll start, starting with all the girls in his office. So what do you want from him? That's what the goyim say, right? I was born that way. That's a fashion today. No, meaning he has potential to be zanoi. He can use it in a good way. I don't know, to be a good husband. He can, I don't know, do it in different ways. Yeah, whatever that is. You find different venues to do it, or learn how to control it, learn how to deal with it, be aware of it, be more shomer inaim. I don't know. But Lamaisi he has those character traits, and he has to know how to deal with it and channel it the right way. Amar Rabba. Now Rabba is questioning what we said, and he said, "Ano b'madim avoy." I was born. I know I was born under the star of Madim. Yeah, of Mars, and I'm not any of the two, of the four. I'm not a murderer, and I'm not a moyel. Abaye, no, mar nami anish v'kotil. Abaye is telling his Rebbe, you also, you're Dayan. And as a Dayan, you kill people indirectly because of your din, even in Bavel. Interesting. Even in Bavel, you have the ability, they say that really based in even after Beis HaMikdash was Nechrav, there's all interesting needed in halacha. In certain cases, Bezin can kill, and therefore it's separate issue in halacha here. But basically, because indirectly people may get killed because of your word, then yes, here you are. You're an indirect blood spiller in the good sense of the word, and yeah, you fit the bill. Itmar, Rabbi Chanina Oimer. Now that's a famous one. Rabbi Chanina says, Mazal machkin, Mazal make you smarter, Mazal mashir. In other words, a person may be born under a certain Mazal which make him smart or make him rich. V'yesh Mazal Yisrael. Wow, yesh Mazal Yisrael. What does it mean? Rashi says, She'ein tefillah tzedakah mishanes mazal. Scary. Even tefillah and tzedakah do not change the mazal. They can change gzar din. The age of 25 did an avera, he can do tshuva. But if there's a mazal in a person from the moment he was born to be rich or chalila poor, that cannot be changed even by tefillah and ma'asim tovim. Wow, that's the opinion of Rabbi Chanina. By the way, mazal comes from nozel, meaning it comes from Hashem through the stars, through the zodiac signs, all the way down. Rabbi Yochanan Omar, Ein Mazal Yisrael. Rabbi Yochanan says, no, Ein Mazal Yisrael. This is very, very interesting. The Rashi I just read to you. Ein Mazal Yisrael. Many times people like to quote that word again and again and again, this sentence, and they say, astrology is shtusim, there's no such thing as a star in astrology. It doesn't say it here. I'm not going to the discussion, but Ein Mazal Yisrael means that there is Mazal, but the Mazal can be changed from Torah Ma'asim Tovim. That's why Yisrael versus Goyim. Goyim don't do mitzvahs, definitely not as much as we do. So Goyim are under the Mazal. The Nozel Alehem. It starts from above and goes down to them. We can reach above the Mazal through Torah Ma'asim Tovim. But a Jew who doesn't keep Torah Ma'asim Tovim, does Nu Tshuva, then he's also under the Mazal. Yeah? There is Mazal, but it's changeable. That's Ein Mazal Yisrael. That's Pashup Pshat. The Az Rabbi Yochanan Taimei, Rabbi Yochanan is following his own reasoning. Dom Rabbi Yochanan, Minayin Shen Mazal Yisrael. Well, how do you know that this is true, that we are above the Mazal? Shenemar Kol Hashem El Derech HaGoyim Al Tilmedu. Don't learn from the ways of the Goyim. Oisas HaShamayim Al Techatu. Don't be scared of the Oisas HaShamayim. You hear an astrologist telling you in the internet, in the newspaper, that, this zodiac means something bad. Don't be scared of that. Why? Because Goyim should be scared of the astrological predictions. Why not Israel? Because we have the bigger power, we have the bigger weapon of Torah and mitzvahs and tshuva. I would stop here because I gotta go. And Rav Sover en Mazal Israel. We're going to see now Yimretz Hashem on Sunday. We gotta finish on Sunday 9:05. On Sunday we're going to see the story with Avraham Avinu. How do you know that there's no Mazal Israel from Avraham Avinu and Yitzchak Avinu? Whew! Atzlacha bracha. Thank you very much, everybody, and you're invited. Thank you for coming to our Siyum Wednesday night. Yimretz Hashem. Everybody watches us in America is welcome to fly to Israel and come and join our Siyum. Atzlacha bracha. Thank you. Call to